Hello everybody, welcome to my video for Monday the 2nd of October 2017. I'm Doc Eon and you're looking at a lot of little plastic army men. Specifically, I painted up these Space Marines. And I painted them mostly as Crimson Fists. I didn't go fully traditional in the paint scheme. I painted both hands red for all of them. I didn't care about that idea that only veterans should have that. Maybe these are all veterans. I don't know. I diverged a little from the normal color scheme in a couple of other ways. The eyes are not red, they're yellow, and that is intended in some small way to play with the yellow stripes on the road they're standing on. So there's a little bit of yellow up here and a little yellow down there. I don't think anybody will ever think of that, notice it, but oh well. Also, the chest eagles, the wings, are traditionally, in most paint jobs I've seen, they're just painted gray or silver up to white. I did a sort of greenish white, and I wanted to add another color, and I wanted the green to contrast the red. Also because some of them, well, for example, this officer here has kind of a wreath, a laurel wreath on his head, and I thought that should really be green. So I wanted to keep that green going. What else? Oh, these insignia on their right shoulders are not traditional. I used the decals transfers. That was hell, of course. I keep forgetting every time how difficult it is, and I got them mostly okay. I mean, you can see some of these. This one is in the wrong angle. I noticed that too late after they're already set. Some others are a little bit off center or too high up on the shoulder or whatever. But at least I managed to smooth them down eventually after much work. And the thing with Crimson Fists is, in the artwork, they're supposed to have, you know, the usual tactical arrows up, the up arrow up, and it's supposed to be red and inside a circle to match their chapter symbol. There are no decals for that, and I didn't want to freehand it, because if I freehand something with paint on one shoulder, that will never match the color of the decal on the other shoulder, no matter how you do it. So I looked around, what could I find on the various decal sheets, that the transfer sheets, that looked cool and had some red in it, and I found this, which some of you might recognize from the Chaos Marine transfer sheet. So yeah, but you know, I didn't find anything particularly chaotic about it. I mean, skulls. I mean, normal Space Marines are no strangers to skull iconography, okay? And having little red bat wings, again, not all that chaotic. I didn't find that to be something that should bother anybody. What else can we say about them? The blue, the main color, I experimented. The process I used for these involved a little bit of dry brushing, which I'm not happy with, because if you look really closely you can still see the streaks. So I'm trying to figure out a way to not include a dry brushing step, but still make it relatively quick, not spend inordinate amounts of time on the paint job, because, well, because I don't want to spend too much time on them. But otherwise, you know, I find that these came out okay. Overall, a little bit darker perhaps than I was predicting or intending, but you know, good enough. And here we have the standard bearer. It's hard to get all of them in shot at once. I did not put in a lot of work on the plasma pistol, on the coils. I just didn't feel that like that was called for. This parchment turned out a little bit dark, but oh well. I should have done something else with the skull and the wings at the top of this parchment. Just plain gray. It doesn't separate it out really. Maybe I should have done that red. That could have been interesting. Yeah. You can always repaint stuff, I suppose, but I tend not to go back and paint over stuff once I've done it. I tend to feel like, yeah, I'll use that idea next time instead. But so anyway, we have a grand total of 9 guys. Oops. Finished. And oh, the bases I feel turned out pretty nice. They look like old ruined roads, I think. And I didn't want all of them to have stripes in the same places, so I tried to vary the angles a lot. But that's them. Now the next batch of Space Marines, the Assault Marines, are well on the way. I mean, they're like 1 day of work away from being completed, I'd say. As in, you know, a few hours, 4 or 5 hours maybe. If I can get the concentrated time to do it. The good thing about these is that they don't have any decals. I've chosen sculpted shoulder pads for all of them that I will paint. And again, the right shoulder pads here are from the Chaos Space Marine kit, but I picked ones that don't have any obvious chaos symbols. Well, the 8 star is kind of chaos, but you know, I mean, skulls and arrows, there's nothing inherently chaotic about that. I don't think. You know, it doesn't look too weird. And yeah, there's nothing else chaos about these guys, so I think I can get away with it. Look for these to be done by next week at least. Now for these 2 characters, you see I've done them all in pieces and put them on corks. I assembled Cranon partially. I put on the cloak and his left arm because it's straight out, it's not covering anything else, it's not in the way. The sword arm though, he's carrying it across his body like this. That would really be in the way, so that's separate, as is the backpack. And what I've done is primed and put down a thin layer of black on the areas that will be, or at least might be, metallic. This is the body of Balthazar, his head, the front of the body with the arms and the sword, and the backpack. And I've started in a little bit on the basis as well. Yeah. So, progress has been made here as well. And here we see Great Cthulhu, all assembled and gap-filled. I mean, the gap-filling, this stuff isn't really necessary, I would say. I mean, it's you know, the little gaps here could easily be explained away as gaps caused by the fact that there's a difference in it. It passes from body to wing or from body to head or so forth. So yeah, but I did it just for completeness sake. The one place that really needed to be filled was the tail, where it connects to the body here, so that appears seamless. And as you can see, I've glued it onto the MDF base and added some acrylic paste. I'm trying to make it look like water. We'll see how that turns out. Next stage is to prime him and start painting, and yeah, just priming this guy is going to take a while. So yeah, we'll see how far I get by next week. I hope to have at least all the airbrushing done by then. I really have enough projects on my plate, but I can't resist thinking at least about what will come next. And I was thinking about, on the one hand, doing sort of army figures, because I've been doing the Space Marines. What else can I do that's units that so I can get a lot of models done more or less simultaneously? Also, what can I do that I can utilize the airbrush for, and especially this technique I'm trying to develop for glazing over appreciated model with the airbrush. And I rummaged around for something that would be appropriate for that, and I found these couple of boxes, which are from Mantic. These are what I got from 2 Kickstarters. Some of it is stuff that has these kinds of bases with a rocky texture are from the Dungeon Saga Kickstarter, and other stuff that has just plain green plastic bases is from the Kings of War Kickstarter. I think that's the breakdown. And I did not back either of those fully. I did not get a whole army for Kings of War. I just got the rule book, second edition rule book, and a few minis. And for Dungeon Saga, I didn't get the game at all. I just picked up some of the resin minis, the ones that were presumably cast at a higher quality. And most of these are demons. These are what Mantic calls infernals. With the exception, I think this bag contains, I think, resin models of the main villains of the Dungeon Saga game. The main antagonists, and they're undead, I believe. But all the rest of this is infernals. Like, for example, this dude, and these hellhounds. Also, I know for a fact the ones I got from Kings of War Kickstarter were infernals. This is a huge, really big guy. You can see just the wings here. Where's the body? He's in a lot of pieces, and he has a really big base, and he's resin. And these guys, there's 3 of them. They come on this size of base, and they're metal. Let's see if we can find a body. Yes, here is a body of one of these guys. I think they were called Molochs. Yeah, so, and of course, the paint jobs for that the Mantic display are that these are all red. So I'm gonna go with basically a red color scheme, as opposed to the blue of the Space Marines I just did. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I have time to at least unbox, unpack, and maybe clean and assemble some of these by next week. I don't think I'll get much further than that, if even that. But anyway, this is what I plan to put in the pipeline. So in the painted column this week, all I have is this bad boy. I bought a second paint spinner. It's from a company called Paintier in the US. I already have one. I've had one for years, and it holds a ton of paint, but as you can perhaps see, it's getting overfilled. I mean, the paints are 3 rows deep in places. You know, I really need to get more organized and make my paints more accessible. So I picked up a second one. And so this is going to be my sort of side project for the coming week, is to assemble this thing. But even before that, I need to decide where to place it. I could just place it here, I suppose. There's an empty spot. But I want to clean up my space. It's gotten rather dirty, and it needs a good cleaning. And once that's done, I can decide how I want to organize my paints in the future. So that was this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Click like if you did, subscribe if you haven't done so, comment if you feel it was comment worthy, and I'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Dark Eon, and I'm signing off.